Welcome to Down to Business with V, a show dedicated to bringing you actionable information to help protect you, your families, your businesses, and the community. I'm your host V, and today we're discussing the hacker's brief, how everyday citizens are fighting cybercrime. We've called in a cybersecurity expert to give you tips on how to keep your community safe. And as always, we'll share what to do if you're a victim. Let's get down to business.
From Atlanta, Georgia, to becoming a United States Marine, to Washington, D.C., and every place in between, everybody calls me V. My goal is to bring you resources, education, and knowledge from sources you can trust that informs and protects to safeguard our families, our businesses, and the community. Now let's get down to business.
Welcome to Down to Business with V. I'm your host V, and today we're discussing the hacker's brief and how citizens are fighting cybercrime. Today I have in the studio with me cybersecurity expert Laura Baker. Laura is co-founder and executive director of CyberWyoming and president of CyberWyoming Alliance, which comprises of multiple programs designed to help average citizens as well as Wyoming companies manage their security risks. Wyoming's cybersecurity competition for small businesses is just one of the programs that Laura runs. She also runs an apprenticeship program for tech professionals, and she has what's called the Hacker's Brief, a weekly publication that comes out through her organization, as well as the Senior Fraud Alert Flyers, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Laura also runs the annual Cybersecurity Conference through her organization and a school cyber safety video challenge. You're very busy, Laura Baker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes, I am busy, but I love coming here to talk to you. Thank you, V.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So Laura, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing with the Hacker's Brief and how everyday citizens are bringing their information to you and through the organization and helping their communities. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
So we set the first thing we did with the Hacker's Brief is we set up a phishing@cyberwyoming.org email address, and people can forward their emails, forward their texts. They also can describe a call that they might have received, and we make it anonymous, verify it, make it anonymous, and then we put it into a weekly publication called the Hacker's Brief that is picked up by Wyoming newspapers statewide, as well as organizational newsletters. So they use it for training and to alert their friends, family, and neighbors in their communities.
What a novel idea. This is awesome. This is taking, being a good citizen to the next level. I love it. And you know what I also love about the program is that, or the brief itself, is that the concepts that are, malicious actors are perpetrating in one area sometimes, or on one individual, sometimes don't always get shared. Some people are a little too nervous to share or might be embarrassed to share. In this scenario, not only are, the potential targets or potential victims sharing, but they're sharing on a scale where multiple parties in multiple places will be able to see and be helped by this. I think it's absolutely amazing. So tell me how all of this got started.
It got started through the Wyoming CAN committee, which CyberWyoming Alliance is a part of. CAN stands for Cybersecurity Action Network. It's 100% volunteers. It's a complete grassroots organization. And it's IT professionals as well as bank managers and insurance agents and law enforcement statewide that see these scams come through all the time. And they said, we've got to get this information out to people. If they know about it, then they're less likely to engage with the scammer. And that's proven by studies. Better Business Bureau has been doing studies about that if you have previous knowledge or prior knowledge of the scam and scam tactics, then you are much less likely to engage and thus lose money. And so this came up This idea came through about 3 years ago, I would say. And now every year we take the statistics, like where the scam was reported from, what area of the state, and we publish them so that if Sheridan, Wyoming, for instance, beat out Cheyenne, Wyoming, we make sure Cheyenne and Sheridan know about who reported the most so that they can up their game and create a friendly, competition from different parts of the state.
I love that. I love it. And I love how, you're involving the citizens as well as the municipalities themselves in all of that. So, Laura, I'm sure you have a dozen great stories. Tell us some of the things that you're seeing that is being reported through this hacker's brief.
One of my favorites was somebody called me, and he was from a very remote part of Wyoming, and he said, "You know that car warranty scam?" And I said, "Yeah, we've all gotten it." And he said, "They called me 3 times in 30 minutes." And he said, "So here's what I did." And they love reporting these because it's that little bit of getting even, right? If I report it, everybody knows. But he really went further. And he said, "So I know you're not supposed to press a number, but I did." And he said, "I pressed 1 to speak to a live person. And the first thing I asked was, what country are you calling from and what company are you calling from?" And I didn't even let them get a word in edgewise. They just said hello, and that's what I said. And they hung up on me. And I said, well, good for you, because what they're doing is they're acting on those half stories where they give you a partially believable story or something that has just enough information. They have your vehicle make and model. They know that what year it is. And so now they're going to try to scam you for these car warranties. And I said, good for you. So instead of going forward with this partially believable half story, he asked questions and pushed it forward. And the hackers probably moved on to lower hanging fruit. Now, every expert says never press a number because it indicates that your phone number is active and available for more, and it could open you up to more scams. But I'm still really proud of this man because he was asking the right questions, and he was kind of pushing the bully back to the sidewalk and keeping him off the playground.
Absolutely. I love it. And you're right. We do recommend not to press any buttons for those exact reasons. It lets the malicious actor know that there's a live target on the other end, and they can carry out more activities against them. But in this case, he did it strategically.
Yes, he knew what he was doing.
He knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah, I love it. And I've heard other stories where people will kind of push back at the malicious actors and kind of make it worth or more trouble than it is worth their while to contact them. I was actually on the line with a colleague the other day. We were having a conversation, and a text message came through on his phone, and it was allegedly from the IRS. And he said, I just got a text message that there was something that needed to be amended with my return. I said, absolutely not. That is not from the IRS. They will not be texting you regarding your tax return.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the malicious actors wanted him to press a button and then, or click a link to go and update something. And shortly after, maybe a week or two later, I got the same text message. So we see this type of stuff is playing out. Do you have any other stories of what's happening?
I do.
With the cyber brief.
So in Wyoming, we have a lot of cabins up in the mountains, and most of them don't have cell phone range. So you either have to, if you're going to be up there for a long period of time, you have to put in a landline. And this citizen was at his cabin up in the mountains, which is his second home, and he got a call from Publishers Clearinghouse. Now you have to realize that this cabin is not in a populated area. You have to go on a dirt road to get to it, and it's in the middle of nowhere. So, because that's what cabins are, in the mountains. And so the Publisher Clearinghouse says, we have your cabin we have your address, and it was the cabin address, which the citizen thought was weird because that wasn't his primary home. And he had all sorts of information about him. And he said, you just won Publishers Clearinghouse at $650 million. You're going to get $5,000 a week for the rest of your life. And we have a flatbed truck with a brand new Chevy Silverado coming to you right now. Well, this citizen thought this was hilarious because he said there's no way a flatbed truck could ever get on those dirt roads. So he kept him stringing along. He knew right away it was fraud, and he kept stringing him along. He said he kept him on the phone for 30 minutes, got all of their fake names. I'm sure they were all fake. Got callback phone numbers, got everything, and then, of course, reported it to us. But he was so tickled with himself, and he did this because he'd read the hacker's brief before and knew that these types of calls come through.
I love it. I love it, making a huge impact, the hacker's brief is. And I love that you talked about earlier how if citizens can recognize the scam, they're less likely to fall prey to it. I always liken it to an illness. If you know the signs and the symptoms of the illness, you can diagnose it. If you have no idea what it is, you just might be walking around thinking you have, a common cold when you've got something much worse. So it's the same in the cybersecurity realm. If people know what these scams are, then they know that, listen, these are malicious actors taking action against you, and you might not want to engage. So
absolutely.
We love it, Laura. So what we'd like to do is we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we want to hear more about what you're doing at CyberWyoming and the CyberWyoming Alliance and how citizens, everyday citizens are helping to fight cybercrime in your region. And we'll also talk more about how these programs can be brought to our region. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and today we have been discussing the hacker's brief and how everyday citizens are fighting cybercrime. I have in the studio with me today cybersecurity expert Laura Baker. Laura is the co-founder and executive director of CyberWyoming and president of CyberWyoming Alliance. Welcome back, Laura.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here today. For those that are just tuning in and might be wondering, what is the hacker's brief? And tell us all, more about it and how we can participate in it and how it's going to help us. Recap very quickly for them what this is all about.
Absolutely. The hacker's brief is a citizen report fraud alert. So the hacker, they send their texts or describe their phone calls or send their emails to phishing@cyberwyoming.org. We go through it weekly and verify it, and then make it anonymous, and we send it out to newspapers and organizational newsletters statewide to get the word out about what type of fraud is being spotted in Wyoming.
I love it. And you talked earlier in the first segment about how, as a result of the reporting that you were seeing, that you could kind of see it trickling down on a map. You can see the movement of the malicious actors throughout the state. I love it. And you also shared how this brief was getting major traction in helping to actually divert, or I'd say kind of mitigate the fraud that was potentially happening. Tell us more about that.
Absolutely. Well, if one person in Sheridan, Wyoming, for instance, reports a fraud, then the newsletter, the hacker's brief, is distributed all over the state. And so somebody on the opposite side of the state in Evanston, Wyoming, or Rock Springs, Wyoming, maybe it will be alerted and knows about it. We post this on Facebook groups that are local community Facebook groups. We've gotten permission to do that. We send it to newspapers, and obviously organizational newsletters have picked it up to use it to train their employees on what the latest fraud is out there, because a secure employee at home is also a more secure employee at work.
Absolutely. I always say organizations are just ideas. It's people that make them up.
Absolutely.
So you've got that right. A well-equipped and well-informed workforce is your best defense against these sorts of things. So Laura, I love the idea of this hacker's brief. I'm super excited about it, and I love the impact that it's making. Tell us, before we move on to the next thing that you're doing there at CyberWyoming, tell us another success story that you're having with the hacker's brief.
So there's one person, and this is very recent, up in Sheridan, Wyoming, that has been plagued with email addresses that say, Costco, enter this survey, Sam's Club, enter this survey, get your credit report, and it's link after link after link, and it's from the exact same email address every time. And so we actually notified, it's a legitimate company, and we actually notified them that, hey, you might want to shut down this email address or do something within your company to make sure it's not sending these out because we think it's been compromised. And we've done that multiple times. There was a nonprofit organization in Dallas that was being impersonated through an old email address that they didn't know was sending stuff out. And so not only are these citizens helping other Wyoming citizens that are reading the Hackers Brief every week, but because we take a little bit of extra time to notify legitimate universities, organizations, and companies that, hey, you might be you might be the victim of an impersonation here, their IT group can move forward and protect their company even more.
Absolutely, I love it. And so important, such important work, but I love the vehicle that you're using to get this out. And, it's almost like crowdsourcing, bringing the information from the targets themselves en masse to help other people. I absolutely love it. Now, Laura, you have another initiative there that you're working on. Tell us about the senior fraud alerts.
Right. So we used the same information from the phishing at email address to create senior fraud alert flyers. We partnered with the Wyoming Division of Aging and Wyoming AARP to get these flyers out. AARP provides the graphic arts, which is great because we don't have a graphic artist at CyberWyoming. And then the Wyoming Division of Aging provides the link to the senior centers statewide. So between this collaboration, we're able to get this information out to Meals on Wheels and homebound seniors statewide. So every Wednesday, these flyers are slipped in with Meals on Wheels if the senior center offers an at-home meal delivery. And if they're not, then they're placed throughout the senior center so that seniors can talk about it. And the whole point is, let's talk about this over meals. Let's talk about this at dinner. Let's make sure that we know so that if we have that prior knowledge of, hey, this scam is going around, it looks really real. It's not really Microsoft, or it's not really Amazon. Then you're saving your friends, your families, and your neighbors from that grief that they would have of becoming a cyber fraud victim.
Absolutely. And during earlier this year, I think it was in the month of May, we had the Elder Fraud Abuse Awareness Month. And I did a show where we talked about the numbers, the staggering numbers. And I think it was $1.7 billion with a B was taken from seniors in scams like this, So it touches my heart, to even think that someone would do this, would attempt to carry that out against a senior. But I love what you're doing to help mitigate it. And I love that you guys are putting it in the Meals on Wheels. You're taking it to where they are. You're taking the information to where they are. Now tell us more about it, Laura, and some of the success stories that you're hearing.
One of the stories that I loved seeing, and it was 100% because of these senior alert flyers, for a while there, I think it was about a year ago, it was the Medicaid calls that Medicare calls that a lot of seniors get that are fraudulent. But this one sounded very real because they knew a lot about they would research you and they would tell you your address, your phone number, and they would say that they were from the U.S. Medicare office. And they would say, look, we need to get you your new Medicare ID card because you're on Wyoming Medicare. We're changing from the paper red, white, and blue one to the Wyoming colors of yellow and gold, or I'm sorry, gold and brown and gold. And so it's going to be plastic, so it's more durable. Well, that sounds very real to a lot of people because brown and gold is everywhere in this state. And, not only signifies the University of Wyoming, but people all over the state, wear brown and gold on a day-to-day basis. It matches our landscape a lot of times, and it goes with everything. So they were thinking, well, this might be real. But I saw it from north central Wyoming. That's where it was first reported. Move over to northeastern Wyoming, come down into central Wyoming, and then around southeastern Wyoming. So you could actually see the fraud as it was being reported each week, and how it was coming about. And it was amazing. And it was just the word of mouth network along with the Hackers Brief. It was great.
Wow, I love it. I love it. And again, the fact that you're able to bring the information to citizens where they are and then reach them in mass. I love that idea. The more people you can impact, the better. It's absolutely amazing. Now, Laura, I know that this program also is something that you are excited to share with the rest of the U.S., the rest of the world. How can other regions, organizations in other regions, bring this resource to their region to help educate their citizens?
It's a really simple program to set up. All you need to do is create a phishing at whatever.com.org and start advertising that, hey, if you want to report fraud, report it here. We do check this on a separate laptop, on a separate network. We're very careful. We don't click on anything. We use free tools like checkfish.ai, which follows the URL link to safely. So we can copy and paste that URL link in without clicking on it and say, oh, well, this was a McAfee scam, which is antivirus software. It's actually going to Russia. We know there aren't any Russian offices for McAfee, so it's most definitely a scam. And so, we do that type of stuff. So there is a little bit of research involved. You want to make sure that you're not flagging a legitimate company. There have been times when I think in 3 years we've made one mistake and flagged a legitimate company. But that also gets, kind of gets down to the bones of marketers. Marketers need to be responsible and have transparency in their links and if they send an attachment, and it can't sound like a scam. They need to because the hackers are doing it as well as the marketers are. So we need to make sure that the marketers are legitimate and there's transparency there and we can see where they're really coming from. They don't spoof a name. So, just little things like that, that to set up your program. I would say that this probably takes us, between the senior flyers and the hackers brief, about an hour a week, but we have a small population state. If you're in New York City, it might take you a little bit longer because you'll probably get more reports.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of it. And I love that, CyberWyoming Alliance and CyberWyoming are willing to be a resource for other regions that want to bring on, a resource like this to their organization or to their region. Tell them how they can reach you, Laura.
The best way to reach me is through our website. There's a form that you can fill out to get more information, or you can contact us at info@cyberwyoming.org.
I love it. And if businesses or citizens, seniors, young, old, it doesn't even matter. If they have been affected by fraud, if they have been defrauded in any way, if there have been attempts made against them regarding fraud, how would you suggest they report that?
I would say first contact local law enforcement for citizens. They'll guide you through the process, probably continue on to your state general attorney's office, possibly the Federal Trade Commission, and then report your fraud to ic3.gov at the FBI's website.
Yep, love it. Laura, we are so excited about what you're doing. You're doing so much. It's extraordinary. So congratulations on everything that you're doing to help protect citizens, families, businesses, the community in Wyoming. We love what you're doing, and we certainly do applaud you. Keep up the great work. And on behalf of everybody here, we thank you for being a guest on today's show. It has been extraordinary, and we're excited to have had you today. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us as well. Thank you to our guest, Laura Baker, co-founder and executive director of CyberWyoming and president of the CyberWyoming Alliance. And as always, if you or someone you know has been a victim of fraud, a data breach, or cybercrime of any type, be sure to reach out to your local police department or contact the FBI at ic3.gov. I would like to thank our sponsor, vicargroup.com. Be sure to visit them at vicargroup.com. They are business consultants for Generation U. Also, I would like to say, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you have show ideas, or if you'd like to sponsor the show, please contact us at info@dtbwithv.com. I'd like to thank our guests as well as you, our audience. And I'd also like to thank our crew today for making our show possible. I'd like to thank Hannah Eric, Peter, Stephen, and of course, Doug and Suzanne for making this possible. We couldn't do the show without you. I'm your host, V. This is Down to Business with V. We'll see you next time.